Beyond the battlefield, the hidden world of the Spartans. When people think of Spartans, the image that often comes to mind is that of fierce warriors in red cloaks, shields raised, standing fearlessly at Thermopylae. But the true story of Sparta goes far beyond battlefield heroics and war cries. Beneath their legendary toughness was a society built on discipline, control, and a way of life unlike any other in ancient Greece. Sparta was a warrior state where strength was prized above all else. Physical, mental, and moral. From birth to death, every aspect of a Spartan's life was shaped by the demands of the state. But what many people don't realize is just how extreme, unique, and even bizarre some of those customs and beliefs really were. Here are 7 things most people don't know about Spartans, facts that reveal a darker, deeper, and more complex side to this iconic ancient civilization. 1. Spartan babies had to pass a health inspection. In Sparta, the state was everything, and that included control over life and death from birth. When a baby was born, especially a male, elders from the Gerousia, Spartan Council of Elders, inspected the child. If the baby showed any sign of physical weakness, deformity, or even just seemed sickly, they might be taken to a chasm on Mount Taygetus called the Apothete. There, they were left to die of exposure. This wasn't seen as cruelty. It was believed to be necessary to preserve the strength and purity of the warrior race. Only the strongest were allowed to live and grow, which fed into Sparta's infamous reputation for creating perfect soldiers. 2. Spartan women had more freedom than most in ancient Greece. Spartan women were exceptionally independent compared to their peers in Athens and other city-states. They received physical education, including running, wrestling, and javelin throwing, were encouraged to speak their minds, and could even inherit and own land, a rare thing in the ancient world. Why? Because the men were often off fighting or training from a young age. Women were expected to manage estates and raise strong children. Their role was considered vital to the Spartan state. Only Spartan women give birth to real men, as the saying went. They also married later, around 18, unlike Athenian girls who married as young as 13, and were considered essential to maintaining the bloodline and producing warrior sons. 3. They had a secret police force, the Krypteia. The Krypteia was like a brutal version of military secret service. It consisted of young Spartan men, usually around 18 to 20 years old, who had completed their initial training in the Agage, Spartan education system. They were sent out to live in the wild, survive off the land, and spy on the Helots, the massive enslaved population who did all the farming and labor for Sparta. Sometimes the Krypteia would assassinate strong or rebellious Helots at night to keep the population in fear. Sparta was hugely outnumbered by Helots, so keeping them oppressed was essential for the state's survival. It was a test of stealth, brutality, and obedience, almost like a final initiation into full Spartan manhood. 4. Spartans didn't wear much armor later on. Early Spartans, like other Greek hoplites, wore full bronze armor, helmets, breastplates, greaves. But by the time of the Peloponnesian War, late 5th century BCE, they began to ditch the heavier gear. Why? It's believed that they valued mobility and speed over protection. Lighter armor allowed them to maneuver more easily in the rough terrain of Greece. And frankly, their reputation was so fearsome by then that psychological warfare often did half the work. Also, better discipline and tight formation tactics made them harder to hit in the first place. They still carried their iconic round aspis shields and wore helmets, but many went into battle with little else besides a crimson cloak and bracers. 5. They were obsessed with hair. Long hair was seen as a symbol of pride, nobility, and manhood in Spartan society. Before battle, warriors would meticulously comb and style their hair, sometimes braiding it or tying it back. This ritual wasn't just vanity, it was psychological preparation. They were showing that they were calm and unafraid of death. According to ancient sources like Herodotus, Spartans would groom themselves right before charging into battle, which unnerved their enemies who thought they were about to face fearless lunatics. It also tied into their culture of perfection. Your body was your badge of honor. 6. They avoided money and luxury. Lycurgus, the legendary lawgiver of Sparta, supposedly introduced iron bars as currency to discourage hoarding wealth and to prevent luxury from corrupting the citizens. These bars were heavy, impractical, and basically worthless outside of Sparta. Spartan citizens were expected to live simply and share communal meals in Syssitia mess halls. They wore simple clothing, had plain homes, and looked down on displays of wealth. Owning gold or silver was actually banned. This was meant to foster equality among Spartans and keep everyone focused on military excellence, not personal gain. 7. Spartans were required to steal, but not get caught. From age 7, boys entered the agog, a brutal military-style education. Part of their training involved learning how to survive with minimal resources. They were deliberately underfed so they'd be forced to steal food to survive. But here's the twist. If they were caught, they were punished severely. Not because stealing was wrong, but because getting caught meant they lacked cunning and stealth, which were vital skills for a warrior. One famous story tells of a boy who stole a fox and hid it under his cloak. The fox started gnawing at his stomach, but he didn't flinch or reveal it. He died rather than be caught. That's the level of toughness they aimed for. The legacy of a ruthless ideal. The Spartans were more than just warriors. They were the embodiment of an extreme social experiment. Built on discipline, fearlessness, and sacrifice, their society pushed human endurance to its limits. Every law, every tradition, and every aspect of daily life served one purpose: to create the perfect soldier and preserve the strength of the state. But behind the glory and legends lies a society that was also harsh, controlling, and unsparing. From inspecting newborns for weakness to enforcing silence and self-denial, the Spartans lived by rules that seem almost alien today. Yet it's exactly this intensity that makes them one of history's most fascinating and misunderstood civilizations. Their way of life eventually faded, but their legacy lives on, not just in the pages of history, but in our fascination with what it truly means to live for something greater than oneself. Whether admired or feared, the Spartans remind us of the price of perfection and the power of a disciplined will. Like and subscribe.